who would you like to meet, but you think you're too small to meet that person?
No one.
Exactly, and that's the answer that you get. Like, well, I can meet anyone I want to meet. I can reach out for anyone I want to reach out for. I can do anything I want to do. So these boundaries are just a way, right? Because very often when you talk to people, I'm an Austrian. I was born in Austria. When you talk to people in Austria, they're like, yeah, but we're just so small, no one really cares. No one would really look. So this idea of you are too small for something doesn't exist there. That's going to be translated and go big or go home outside of Silicon Valley, but they don't see it that way.
Hello, welcome to Self Backstage. I'm thrilled to be having a conversation today with Niki, who is a business therapist. And in the conversation, we are going to touch on topics entrepreneurial Silicon Valley mindset, hacks for innovation, and obviously artificial intelligence. How are you, Niki?
I'm really good. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Niki, the first thing that I want to start with is to discuss the Silicon Valley mindset. So my favorite saying is, you need to imagine it possible first for you to make it happen. So how do you define Silicon Valley mindset? How do you think, what are the practical steps entrepreneurs should take to make their big grand visions come true?
Many questions. I think what's special with Silicon Valley is that there is no such thing as I am too small to, and then fill the blank. And I asked one question to a friend once, like, who would you like to meet, but you think you're too small to meet that person?
No one.
Exactly, and that's the answer that you get. Like, well, I can meet anyone I want to meet. I can reach out for anyone I want to reach out for. I can do anything I want to do. So these boundaries are just a way, right? Because very often when you talk to people, I'm an Austrian. I was born in Austria. When you talk to people in Austria, they're like, yeah, but we're just so small, no one really cares. No one would really look. So this idea of you are too small for something doesn't exist there. That's going to be translated and go big or go home outside of Silicon Valley, but they don't see it that way. You only say to someone, you have to think big, if you would see this as big thinking. But if you think big, you don't see this as big thinking. That's just very normal for you. You know, the saying, what's normal to the spider is chaos to the fly.
So do you think this is kind of country specific from where we come from, right? The cultural background that we come from? Or if you spend enough time in Silicon Valley, that kind of rubs off and that's the kind of a little bit of a spice that makes Silicon Valley so special?
Good question. I think everyone in Silicon Valley is from somewhere, so that can't be the answer. Very few people are from San Francisco. Most of the people I met there are from somewhere and they moved there. And then of course you become the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. If that's the common lingo, you start adapting and you become that same kind of thing.
So obviously it's the entrepreneurs in the region, predominantly from the UAE and the Middle East, right, who are going to be listening to a podcast. So we're based here. We want to innovate and bring innovation and value that innovation brings to this region. How should I go about kind of getting the benefits of a Silicon Valley mindset if I cannot spend the time there, if I am not in those ecosystems?
Close the textbooks. I think that, when you come from business school, you have a certain idea of what a business should look like. And very often this comes down, if you reduce this to a minimum, that cost of revenue should be below revenue, so you actually make money. And that's the idea.
That's called the profit.
That's an ideal concept of a business. Silicon Valley doesn't click that way. Silicon Valley says, I have a bet in the future. My hypothesis is that this is going to happen. Are you going to invest in that bet? And along the way, I'm gathering data and information. I know where to go, and maybe eventually this will turn into a business model. But you don't invest when you start something new. You cannot invest in a business model because when it's new, there is no business yet. So you invest in a bet. And if you can understand this mindset of investing in a bet as opposed to investing in the business model in expectable profit, then you might end up in complete different directions.
So from my experience, over the last couple of years, specifically post-COVID, right, we had a little shift in the VC capital allocation. And a lot of that was shifted from only investing in idea into how you're going to be profitable. What is that the same in Silicon Valley, or is there a big shift? Because obviously to make any idea happen, you need capital. At some point you need to be able to invest in both resources and promoting the business. So how should I work with, as an entrepreneur, how should I work with these limitations?
So I would stop thinking it as a limitation.
Okay.
Because the job of an investor is invest in a company.
The job of a founder is to make sure I can convince the investor to give me some of the...
Exactly. So both need the other, right? If there's an investor with a gazillion in his pockets and no one connects, and there is no startup he can own a company he can invest in, he's a bad investor. And if there's a founder who never calls the phone and it's like, okay, can I shake your hands and we need to talk, is a bad founder. So there is not that thing that the founder is this little beggar and the investor is the grand giver concept. This doesn't make sense. There's way too much money. We don't have a money, other than the fact that everyone is spending more than they have, but we don't have a money scarcity. We have a scarcity of ideas worth investing into, and that's kind of constant. And I'm quite strict with founders who I'm not able to raise or have struggling to raise. They're not good enough in making it important for someone who has the money. Because if I'm able of making what's important for me important for you, I don't have to ask you for money. You want to invest in that because it becomes important for you. But if I always just can you give me your money, and I don't want to give you shares, if it's purely transactional, I'm always the beggar and you're always the giver. But when you flip that narrative into here's a problem we're solving, here's something, if we solve that, the world will look differently. And we need to do this because, and then you have a clear narrative that it is not something that is purely transactional, like you give money, you get money, but something that we should do, then you get the money. And I don't think I don't know the VC ecosystem here, to be honest. But that's how it is in Silicon Valley. And to be honest, I don't think it's different anywhere else in the world. Because we're all, at the end of the day, we're all humans. And we click a lot more alike than we think we are. We are a lot less individual than we think we are. We're very common. There's this nice project of Anna Rosling, I don't know if you heard about it, the Dollar Street, where she puts the poorest person in the world on the left end on the street and the richest on the right, and then distributes equally and compares them. And the one big takeaway is we're all the same. There are nuances. So I think if you manage to make something important here, you also get the money. But if it's only about invest in that company, I offer you a hockey shift curve, I don't think that this is going to trigger any excitement. And then you at the end of the day, you end up with, here is my money, I need to invest it in companies. What's the least problem that, where it's I know there's nothing that really excites me, so let's distribute it somehow.
I really like what you're saying. I really like your thoughts. But let's dive into a little bit more tangible specifics.
Huh?
So I'm idea stage founder. I've got an idea. What do I do first? Do I go to an investor right away, or do I start to do some experimentation? Is there a specific model should I focus on? To what stage, from what you've seen across different innovation hubs, right, should I work on things on that idea before I'm able to go and try to convince someone that this is very important, it's going to change the world, you should make the financial capital bet on the future?
Okay, so you have an idea. What's your priority? What's the most important thing for you?
What's the most important thing for me? Let me come up. Well, I think, right, that the most important thing for me is to prove that someone else cares about it, right? And the best way to show it is by saying I was able to get 5 strangers to use a product and say they want this.
So if I have an idea and I think it's a great idea, what's most important for me is I want to see this thing. I want this to be real. And not waiting for someone to pay me to keep the lights up. Okay, so if you have an idea, figure out how you can get this done. Make a prototype, make something, show me that you really care.
Okay.
Because otherwise I feel like, you have an idea and actually a bigger idea is an exit. I'm not interested as a VC, I'm not interested in someone who just, I want to exit.
Okay, so great. So I've got an idea. The first thing to concentrate on is the
prototype.
Get it done. Get the prototype.
Get it out there.
So you talk about the experimentation, right? Systematic experimentation. Is there any specific strategies that you could recommend?
Yeah, there's actually a very formal process behind this. So you start with a hypothesis, I think. And then you put this because you don't, you make a decision, next day you regret it. You don't want to do this for your company. We all done this. We all did things. Next day you're like, oh my God, what did I do yesterday? That's not what you want to do for your company. You have to adopt this mindset of a data company where it's all away from I like it or I dislike it. So you have to put it on a metric. The metric that we use in Silicon Valley is the so-called ICE metric, ICE, impact, confidence, and ease. If that idea turns out to be a success, will it have an impact? Am I actually confident that I can deploy this idea? And will it be easy to do something within the next 2 weeks so I can see if I do change or stop? Okay, and you give it a score. And with that score, you start deploying the whole thing in a design thinking fashion, and you prototype rapidly, and you iterate, and you put it out there, you put it in people's hands, you see things going. And then you find yourself with a product and probably already with a few customers, and then you can start talking to a VC. I would not suggest to go to VC's early stage. I would bootstrap. I would want to see this. You're burning for this. You're gonna get it done, because we live in a time where you can prototype anything for nothing. It's very cheap to prototype literally everything.
And obviously, being able to be resourceful and creative how you create a prototype, that also shows to VC your grit and capacity to make things happen with limited resources.
And then there's this saying, VCs look for people who can bring the right people together. So it's team and people over idea. And as always, because that's true, but as always, when people start talking about something overly, it kind of blurs and it shifts away from what's actually meant. Because I think the idea of a founder already tells a lot about the founder.
Elaborate.
If you come up with an idea, I already know a lot about you before I even know who you bring into this company. I know if you're curious, if you're greedy, if you want to have quick money, if you want to solve a problem, if you want to be on the newsletter on the cover of Next Time magazine. Like, I know already a lot about you. Are there certain vanity metrics behind your idea? Is this a real thing? Is this a problem worth solving? I know so many things about you before I even ask who's your team when you come up with the idea. I had someone approaching me and said, I have an idea and I need to talk to you because most of the people I talk to, they can't think big enough to understand this idea. And I was about to say, thank you, I'm not interested already, but that sounds arrogant. I didn't want to be arrogant, so I heard him out, and it was a completely useless thing. So, and we didn't even go there as like, who's behind this? Who else is there? And I knew already everything I need to know about this guy, that I said, I'm sorry, I don't have any contacts I can introduce you. And the truth was, I was not willing to offer my network to that founder, because that bounced back to me. One of my passions is connecting people. The term, and I don't like the term, but the term is being used is super connector. And it's more than making intros. Right? It's not just, okay, I have your email, I have your email, I connect you guys, you have each other's email. That's not a good intro. Right? That's not a good connection. So you have to be a filter, because people know that if I connect them with someone, I already thought it through.
Absolutely, absolutely, completely. So I want to kind of move back to creating a prototype is very easy right now, right? And one of the topics that I think it's good to touch on right here is artificial intelligence and how can founders use it. So a few days ago, you did a workshop on personal GPT. What is a personal GPT?
Okay, so the building, you can use GPT, right? ChatGPT and all the other GPT, all the other transformers, you can use them right away. Or you can tell them, this is how I want you to sound, this is how I want you to respond in certain situations, this is what inspires me, this is what is important for me. I want you to stay short with your answers and be precise. I want you to, like, you can give him some parameters where you know already, this is the anatomy of a conversation I'd like to have with my GPT. Okay, so everyone should do this, because that's something you can do with every free version as well. On top of that is, you can say, a lot of my conversations have repetitive content and I don't want to do them anymore. This idea of making yourself dispensable, I think that's great. I'm a speaker coach and I'm building a GPT that does 80% of my speaker coaching. I get $400 for each speaker coaching sessions. 80% of this can be done with the GPT, and I don't make a cent. And people ask me, like, why are you doing this? You're losing money. I said, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. Because if there is a certain level where someone feels like, okay, now I need to talk to Niki, I can charge 4,000 for a session. So I'd rather do one for 4,000 than 10 for 400. So all these kinds of things need some training and some understanding of how would Niki respond. And everyone could do this, and it would make your life a lot easier because that just opens up time for other things. For me, technology has always been an amplifier, so that means making lazy people lazier and people who are productive more efficient.
So obviously, I assume that if someone's listening to a podcast, they're in the bucket of people who want to be more efficient. And you speak a lot about design thinking. I'm sure you have played with the idea of how to use ChatGPT for design thinking. What are the hacks? In general, what are your ChatGPT hacks?
Okay, so here's one ChatGPT hack, and that's actually a hack towards generally understanding artificial intelligence and the world we're steering towards. And I don't know how you think about this, but it actually hit me by surprise when I heard it for the first time that wasn't something I've already done all my life. Go to Google, start or whatever your email provider of your preference is, and start an account called nikisdatacollection@gmail.com. And then every time you found an email interesting, forward it to that email. Or every time you write an email, BCC that email. No one I spoke to, like literally no one I spoke to has a data collection strategy. If you want to build a GPT, if you want to work with AI, you have to have good data. And you can't have good data when you start today and you didn't collect it somewhere. I mean, you can, but it's an effort. But if you start today with your data collection strategy, and having an email account that's just for that is very easy. Like people ask me how, like, this is the easiest way to do this. Of course you can put a Google Drive or to let Google out of the equation, whatever, an online drive and put everything in there and collect it and research and on what. But if you start doing this as you go, once you know that now is the time I want to launch it, you already have good data. Because garbage in, garbage out will always stay true. Right, there's no question on this. If you have bad data, I started building my own GPT, and I thought, oh, that's great. I just upload everything. You can upload 20 files and 500 megs for each file. That's the boundaries. So I uploaded everything until I realized, oh my God, this thing is hallucinating all the time. Because if I give a PowerPoint presentation with 5 bullets on a slide, I make it 5 slides, and the first one has the first, the second one the first, the second, first, second, third, and so on. I'm building it up because that's pleasing the eye. If I upload that document for GPT, it means the first bullet is 5 times more important than the last one because it appears 5 times on the slides. If you have an image because it's nice to look at of a tree, the tree is equally important than the text. So you have to clean out this stuff. You have to understand that even despite the fact that I'm talking to something that feels like I'm talking to a human, it's an engine. Okay, it's always about likelihood. It's always about how likely is that response to what you're asking for. What's the accuracy that I can deliver to that prompt? And that's why it's hallucinating a lot, because there's a lot of crap data.
I find personally this really interesting, and that's what I'm going to be looking into the next week. So is there a specific resource you can recommend for people who want to dive into a little bit more of this topic, whether it's building a personal GPT or how to collect the data that will power your personal GPT?
I think there are so many videos, self-trained videos on YouTube, and just go there and figure out. You have to tinker. Everyone wants constant shortcuts. Everyone is looking for shortcuts all the time. I think you should start it and throw it away. Be prepared that the first GPT you build, you will throw away. But you've learned so much, you know it already for yourself what you do next. I think it's important to learn the difference between prompting and prompt engineering. And I would go on YouTube and say, what is the difference between prompt and prompt engineering? And watch some tutorial videos. And it's 2 minutes of a video online, you know already so much more than before. It's no rocket science. And some of these things are very obvious once you hear them. But if you don't have that mindset already, that you think in, okay, this is how the engine is reading me, then you will always produce something that might cause unvaluable data. Mm-hmm.
Niki, what are the overalls? We touch on a lot of topics, from experimentation, design thinking, innovation mindset. Then it comes to resources. Apart from good luck trying to find a good solid resource on a good YouTube video, what other resource would you recommend to people? The one that you'd say, read this book.
Oh, so specific.
It doesn't need to be a book, but like, let's go and be a little bit more specific.
Substack. Go on Substack. I think if there is a platform, and be careful because it can get addictive, where the conversations are happening that you want to be part of, they're happening on Substack at the moment. For me, it was like Facebook 20 years ago, and there was LinkedIn, and now LinkedIn, everything, so you can do everything stories. But it's kind of, okay, I've heard that before. And then Substack, you have Sam Harris and all these people who actually have an opinion that's more educated than reading a few articles and then have my own opinion. That's all happening on Substack at the moment.
This has been a fabulous conversation, and if we'd have more time, we'd keep on going. But if people want to engage more, keep on updates on what you're doing and continue to hearing your thoughts, where can they find you?
Ping me on LinkedIn. It's the easiest. That's my main social media where I interact with people. Substack I purely consume. And ping me on LinkedIn. You can find me on nikiskene.com, but LinkedIn is good.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.